Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop chasing someone, the silence suddenly feels louder than all the words you used to send? Not because you miss them more, but because something inside you finally gets tired of running. You wake up one day and realize you have been spending your energy trying to convince someone to stay, to care, to choose you, and that is a heavy place to live. It drains your confidence, it bends your pride, it makes you question your worth in ways you never should. Yet here is the strange part. The moment you stop chasing, something shifts, not just in them, in you. And that shift is the beginning of real power. Most people think walking away is weakness. They think silence means losing. They think if they stop trying, everything will disappear. But the human mind does not work that way. The human heart does not work that way. The mind is wired to notice what changes. It is wired to feel the gap when something familiar is gone. When you were always there, always available, always explaining, always hoping, your presence became predictable. Comforting maybe, but predictable. And the brain does not hold on tightly to what it believes will always be there. It holds on to what it might lose. Right now, if you are listening to this, there is a good chance you have been chasing. Chasing clarity, chasing attention, chasing a version of someone who only shows up in small pieces. And every time you tried harder, you felt smaller. That is not because you are weak. It is because you are human. The human heart is loyal before it is logical. It hopes before it protects. But there comes a moment when the cost becomes too high. When you realize love should not feel like a job interview you keep failing. It should not feel like you are always one message away from being ignored again. Here is the truth most people never tell you. The moment you stop chasing is not the moment you lose them. It is the moment you stop losing yourself. And that is where everything begins to change. Because confidence is not loud. It is quiet. Self-respect is not dramatic. It is calm. And calm energy does something powerful to the human mind. It creates curiosity. It creates space. It creates questions that did not exist before. If you stay until the end of this video, you will understand something most people never do. You will understand what avoidants secretly respond to. Not the words you beg with, not the promises you offer, but the energy you carry when you finally choose yourself. And that understanding can save you years of emotional exhaustion. It can save you from repeating the same story with different faces. Right now, you might feel like stopping means giving up. But what if it actually means stepping into your real value? What if the silence you are afraid of is the exact space where respect is born? The human mind does not chase what is chasing it. It wonders about what stands still with confidence. It starts to question what changed. And those questions are more powerful than any long message you could ever send. This is not about games. This is not about manipulation. This is about psychology. Real, human psychology. People do not miss words. They miss energy. They miss how you made them feel. And when your energy shifts from needing to choosing, from chasing to standing, from proving to living, something inside the other person begins to wake up. So before you think about what they might do next, ask yourself a better question. What happens when you finally stop running after someone and start walking back to yourself? That is where this story really begins. The shift you felt in the last part does not happen all at once. It begins quietly, almost invisibly. One day you send fewer messages. Another day you stop explaining yourself. Then one day you realize you are no longer waiting by your phone with the same tight feeling in your chest. At first, it feels strange. Your mind looks for the old habit, the habit of checking, the habit of hoping, the habit of trying to fix something that was never fully in your hands. This is how the human brain works. It gets attached to patterns, even painful ones, because at least painful patterns are familiar. But when you break the pattern, Your nervous system starts to calm down, and calm is not boring. Calm is powerful. When you stop chasing, your energy changes before anything else does. You sit differently. You think differently. You breathe differently. You no longer speak from fear. You no longer move from panic. And people can feel that. Even if they cannot explain it, they can sense it. The human brain is always reading signals. It reads tone. It reads pace. It reads confidence. And when your energy shifts from please choose me to I choose myself, the signal becomes clear. You are no longer asking for permission to exist in someone's life. You are simply living your life. This is where something interesting happens inside an avoidant mind. At first, there is relief. Relief from pressure. Relief from expectations. Relief from emotional intensity they did not know how to handle. But relief does not last forever. The brain is not built to stay comfortable. It is built to notice change, and your absence is a change. Your silence is a change. Your calm is a change, and the mind starts to ask questions, not because you ask them to, but because the brain hates unfinished stories. You see, when you were always there, always reaching out, always trying to close the distance, there was no mystery, no space, no reason to reflect. Everything was happening in front of them. They did not need to think. They did not need to wonder. They did not need to feel the weight of your presence because it was always available. But when you step back, you take your energy with you, and energy leaves a shape behind, a space. And space makes the mind work. This is not about making someone anxious. This is about allowing reality to be felt. The human heart does not value what it never has to risk losing. It does not mean people are bad. It means people are human. The brain protects what feels important, and importance is often discovered through contrast, through before and after, through presence and absence. While they are processing, something else is happening on your side. You are slowly reconnecting with parts of yourself you ignored. Your focus comes back. Your sleep gets better. Your thoughts become clearer. You start doing small things for yourself again, not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, but because you finally have the space to breathe. And that changes your posture in the world. You are no longer leaning forward, waiting. You are standing where you are, grounded. This is the part most people misunderstand. They think stopping means closing your heart. It does not. It means opening your eyes. It means seeing that your worth does not come from how hard you try. It comes from who you are when you are not trying to earn a place in someone's life. Confidence grows in quiet moments like this, not in big speeches, not in dramatic exits, but in the simple choice to stop abandoning yourself for someone else's comfort. And here's the strange thing. When you stop chasing, you stop sending mixed signals. Before, your words might have said, "I'm okay," but your actions said, "I'm afraid to lose you." Now your actions and your energy start to match. They say, "I respect myself." That consistency is felt, even by someone who avoids closeness, even by someone who runs from emotional weight. Strength feels safer than need. Calm feels safer than pressure. This does not mean someone will suddenly change overnight. Real change takes time, but the direction of the emotional current begins to shift. The story in their head is no longer, "They will always be there no matter what." It becomes, "Something changed." And that simple thought can open a door that words never could. You are not doing this to get a reaction. You are doing this to get your life back. And that is why it works differently. Because when you are no longer chasing, you are no longer negotiating your value. You are no longer shrinking to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You are standing in your own space. And standing still, with confidence, is often more attractive than running in circles with hope. The silent shift is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not need to. It shows up in your calm. It shows up in your boundaries. It shows up in the way you stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening anyway. And once this shift happens, the entire emotional balance starts to change, not because you forced it, but because you finally chose yourself. Once the silent shift begins, something becomes very clear. Chasing never brought you closer. It only made you more tired. It only made you question yourself more. It only made you work harder for something that should never require you to beg. The human heart does not respond well to pressure. The human mind does not open under force. It closes. It protects itself. And every time you chased, every time you explained, every time you tried to fix the distance with more effort, you were not building connection. You were building resistance. Think about how the brain works for a moment. When something comes too easily, it is taken for granted. When something feels guaranteed, it is not examined. It is not protected. It is not valued in the same way. This is not cruelty. This is psychology. The mind is designed to save energy. It does not hold tightly to what it believes will always be there. It holds tightly to what feels uncertain, what feels meaningful, what feels like it could be lost. Chasing sends a very clear message, even if you never mean it to. It says, I need you more than I need myself. It says, my peace depends on your response. It says, you decide how I feel about me. And the human mind does not feel safe with that kind of weight. Even a caring person can start to feel overwhelmed by it, especially someone who already struggles with closeness. Instead of moving closer, they pull back. Not because you are too much, but because the situation feels too heavy. This is where most people get stuck. They think, if I just try harder, if I just say it better, if I just show more love, it will finally work. But love is not a negotiation. Connection is not built through exhaustion. You cannot convince someone to feel safe by proving how much you are willing to suffer for them. The nervous system does not respond to sacrifice the way movies teach us. It responds to safety. It responds to stability. It responds to calm strength. Every time you chase, you teach the other person something about the dynamic. You teach them that you will stay, even when your needs are not met. You teach them that distance does not cost them anything. You teach them that they do not have to move, because you will do all the moving. And once a pattern like that is set, the brain follows it without thinking. Patterns become habits. Habits become expectations. And expectations become invisible rules in the relationship. This is why chasing feels so painful. Not just because you are tired, but because on some level, you can feel that you are training the situation to stay exactly the same. You are giving more and getting less. You are shrinking so the distance feels smaller. You are adjusting so they do not have to. And over time, that does something dangerous to your self-respect. You start to believe that this is just how love works, that love means waiting, that love means hoping, that love means proving. But real love does not need you to disappear to survive. There is another truth that is hard to accept. Chasing keeps you focused on their reaction instead of your reality. Your mood rises and falls with their attention. Your confidence depends on their reply. Your peace depends on their mood. And that is not connection. That is emotional imbalance. The brain cannot feel safe in a situation where it has no control over its own stability. So it stays anxious. It stays alert. It stays tired. When you stop chasing, you are not punishing anyone. You are simply removing yourself from a position that was slowly breaking you. You are saying, without saying it, my life does not pause here. And that changes everything. Because now the dynamic is no longer one-sided. Now there is space. Now there is balance. Now there is a chance for something real to exist instead of something forced. Chasing also blocks growth. It keeps both people stuck in their roles. You stay the one who reaches. They stay the one who withdraws. And as long as those roles stay the same, nothing new can happen. The brain does not change when the environment does not change. It only adapts when something feels different. Your absence, your calm, your quiet confidence. These are differences the mind cannot ignore. The most powerful part of all of this is not what happens in them. It is what happens in you. You stop performing. You stop overthinking every word. You stop living in reaction mode. You start making choices based on your values, not your fears. And that is where your real strength begins, not in being needed, but in being whole. Chasing never works because it teaches the wrong lesson. It teaches that love is earned through effort instead of built through mutual care. It teaches that distance has no cost. It teaches that your presence is unlimited and your energy is free. And nothing valuable is treated carefully when it feels unlimited. When you stop chasing, you are not closing your heart. You are opening your eyes. You are stepping out of a cycle that could have lasted for years. You are choosing dignity over desperation, peace over pressure. And that choice changes the emotional gravity of the entire situation, even if no one says a word. When chasing stops, another layer of truth starts to appear. Beneath the distance, beneath the silence, beneath the calm face, there is usually one quiet driver that shapes avoidant behavior. It is not a lack of feeling. It is not a lack of interest. It is fear, but not the kind of fear most people talk about. Not the fear of losing you. The deeper fear is the fear of losing control. For an avoidant mind, control feels like safety, control over emotions, control over closeness, control over how much someone can matter. When things start to feel too deep, too real, too close, the nervous system reacts, not with logic, with protection. The body does not ask, "Is this person good for me?" It asks, "Does this feel risky?" And if the answer feels like yes, distance becomes the shield. This is why chasing creates the opposite effect. The more you move toward them, the more their system feels pressure. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because closeness, for them, has been linked to loss of control, to being overwhelmed, to being trapped in expectations they do not know how to meet. So their mind does what it learned to do a long time ago. It creates space. It pulls back. It delays. It goes quiet. Avoidance is not coldness. It is a strategy built to survive emotional overload. Somewhere in their past, closeness probably came with pain, chaos, or responsibility they were not ready to carry. So the brain learned a simple rule. Stay in control. Stay distant enough to breathe. Stay independent enough to not need anyone too much. That rule may have protected them once, but now it also blocks real connection. When you chase, you accidentally push against that rule. You increase the emotional weight. You increase the sense of expectation. You increase the feeling that something is being demanded, even if you are only asking for basic clarity. And the avoidance system hears that as danger, not because you are dangerous, but because losing control feels dangerous. This is why their reactions can seem confusing. One moment they are warm. The next moment they are distant. One moment they feel close. The next moment they need space. It is not a game. It is an internal conflict. Part of them wants connection. Another part of them wants safety. And safety to them means space. Here is the important part. Their biggest fear is not that you will leave. It is that they will lose themselves, that they will lose their emotional balance, that they will be pulled into something they cannot regulate. So they manage closeness by controlling it, by keeping it at a level that feels manageable. And when closeness starts to exceed that level, they retreat. Chasing tells their nervous system, this is getting bigger. Stopping tells their nervous system, this is calmer. Calm feels safer, and safety is the doorway to reflection. When you stop chasing, you are no longer adding pressure to their system. You are no longer pushing against their need for control. You are allowing their mind to settle instead of defend. This does not mean they suddenly become fearless. It means the alarm quiets down. And when the alarm quiets down, something else becomes possible. Awareness, curiosity, thought. The brain can only reflect when it is not in survival mode, when it is not trying to escape, when it is not trying to manage emotional overload. That is why your silence can do what your words never could, not because silence is a trick, but because it removes the feeling of being chased. It removes the feeling of being cornered. It removes the feeling of being emotionally pushed. And in that space, the avoidant mind can finally breathe. There is another truth that is hard to hear. You cannot make someone feel safe by chasing them. Safety is not created by intensity. It is created by consistency and calm. It is created when someone feels free to choose, not pressured to respond. When you stop chasing, you give back choice, and choice is deeply tied to control. They no longer feel like they are being pulled. They feel like they are standing on their own feet again. This is also why strength feels different to them than need. Need feels like weight. Strength feels like stability. When you stop chasing, you stop showing up as someone who needs an outcome to feel okay. You start showing up as someone who is okay first. That shift is subtle, but powerful. The nervous system reads it. The mind feels it. The dynamic changes. None of this means you excuse bad behavior. None of this means you accept less than you deserve. It simply means you understand the real fear driving the distance. And when you understand it, you stop taking it so personally. You stop seeing their withdrawal as a measure of your worth. You start seeing it as a pattern that existed long before you arrived. The hidden fear is not about you. It is about control, about emotional safety, about not knowing how to stay open without feeling overwhelmed. And when you stop chasing, you stop feeding that fear. You stop triggering the alarm. You create a quieter emotional environment where something new has a chance to grow. You do not change someone by pushing them. You change the situation by changing your position in it. And sometimes, the most powerful move is not stepping closer. It is stepping back and letting calm do what pressure never could. When you understand that fear of control is what sits under the distance, absence starts to make sense in a new way, not as punishment, not as a tactic, but as a natural reset. Absence changes the emotional temperature of a situation. It lowers the pressure. It removes the feeling of being watched, measured, or pulled. And when pressure leaves, the nervous system finally gets a chance to settle. A settled system can think. A settled system can feel. A settled system can notice what is missing. The human mind is not moved by what is always present. It adapts to it. It gets used to it. It builds a story around it that says, this will always be here. And once that story is in place, the mind stops paying attention. This is not because people do not care. It is because the brain is designed to conserve energy. It does not keep emotional focus on what feels guaranteed. It keeps focus on what feels uncertain, what feels different, what feels like it could be lost. Your absence creates contrast. Before there was effort, now there is space. Before there were messages, now there is quiet. Before there was pursuit, now there is stillness. The brain notices contrast. It cannot ignore it. It starts to compare the before and the after. And comparison is the beginning of awareness. This is why silence can feel so loud, not because nothing is happening, but because the mind finally has room to hear itself. When you were always there, always reaching out, always trying to close the gap, there was no room for reflection. Everything was being filled by your effort. The emotional environment was crowded. Now there is space, and space invites thought. Absence does not force someone to care. It simply reveals what is already there. If there is no attachment, the space will feel empty and stay empty. But if there is emotion, if there is connection, if there is a bond that was being taken for granted, the space will start to echo. The mind will start to replay moments. It will start to remember how things felt. It will start to notice the shape you used to fill. This is not about creating anxiety. It is about allowing reality to be felt without interference. When you were chasing, you